You're listening to Convenience Matters, brought to you by NACS. We'll talk about what we see at stores and what the future may hold for our industry.
Welcome, everyone, to Convenience Matters. My name is Blasinsky with NACS.
And I'm Britt Brewer with NACS.
And today we are joined by a good friend of ours who we've gotten a chance to get to know over the last, 4 or 5 years, I think. Rachel Krupa. It feels like forever because most of when we got to know you was through a pandemic, and all these years tend to blur together to me at this point. But Rachel, you are a operator in New York City. When we met you, you had a store in LA as well. Mm-hmm. So you were bi-coastal. I don't know how you did it, but you did. And then we got the pleasure of visiting you in New York City for Ideas to Go in 2019. And it's been, you've just been diving into this industry since then and getting involved with NACS. And we're having a lot of fun along the way. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been such a fun journey, because you never know what's going to happen next. I mean, in the world and through
Isn't it the spice of life
and everything else? It is.
Variety is the spice of life, Rachel. We're just going to go with that, right?
Hey, that's a really good word, though, to tee up Rachel's stores.
Indeed.
For sure, because there's a lot of variety when you walk into a very small footprint, which is the Goods Mart. So, but before we dive into your stores, I wanted just to give the audience a chance to get to know you as we have, right? So What is it about convenience stores that you absolutely love, and what made you want to open your own store?
Yeah, I mean, good question. I think it all fell for the love of a gas station called Sunoco in the small town that I'm from in Pinconning, Michigan. Sunoco in our area, and I think in most, like as you go into the Midwest or more rural areas, and in the city, I guess, they're lifelines of like your community. It's where you get your milk, eggs, your cheese, your essentials. And I remember growing up with just like the fondest memories of the person behind the register with a smile, and you could always, chit chat with them, or you might run into someone that you had a crush on, or you would always be able to convince your dad. They're like, Dad, I really need this candy. Mom won't let me have it, but can I have it? And he would always say yes. And you just put it in the car. So that's just where the love came. And then it just grew more of once I learned more about like the food industry and, looking at it of like, how can you take a modern twist on a convenience store, how we have with the Goods Mart, and making everything better for you because of the past history that I've had in like the food industry for 20 years of helping better for you brands grow.
So kind of along the same lines as what Chris was talking about, being bi-coastal and like bringing the store to New York. New York is traditionally a bodega place. That is a bodega heavy city. What's the difference? And how have you found your niche being more of a convenience store versus bodega? Is there a difference? Maybe it's all the same thing. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think bodegas are just like the lifeline of New York, and bodega culture is bodega culture. And I don't think I could ever be, I always emulate to have that. But bodega culture, I think, is like in just like the backbone of the city. And I think that a newer concept coming in is more of a convenience store in this sense. And so that's just what I looked at. Plus, it's like growing up in the Midwest and going, into the cities of New York and LA. Convenience stores just felt right for what we were building in regards of the type of like snacks and the type of offering that we wanted to have for our customers. It just felt more, I don't know, it just felt right. But yeah, bodegas are amazing.
Yeah. Absolutely. And one of the fun things that, you've done over the past few years is the snack boxes. And I know we touched on that in the Ideas to Go video, but I think you were like the tip of the iceberg. And the way that it's grown since then is pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's like the fun thing. You look back and you think about when we first like started, chatting, Chris, it was just like in, the first one, like 2018, 2019, and then the pandemic hit. And the Goods Mart always just has been a better for you everything in the store is non-GMO, no artificial flavors. And we try to elevate emerging brands. So brands that you really can't find in any other retailer, because we're small enough and nimble enough to put them on our shelves and rotate them quickly. But during the pandemic, it was our customers were not able to meet and like come to our store because we're in a more commercial area where people worked around us versus living. And since people were not coming into the city where we were at, they started reaching out and being like, hey, can you send us out Bjorn corn? Can you send us this? And then the other side happened, was just like, hey, we want to support you because you're a small business. I want $50 of snacks or $100 of snacks. Can you just send snacks? And I'm like, yeah, let's do this. And then it was just like a need to fill a void for two people, like our customers wanting to help us, but then us wanting to help our customers. And then the cherry on top is really still trying to help the emerging brands that filled our store by buying them, because most people in the height of the pandemic were looking for essentials. It was the toilet paper. It was like all the things that you needed. It wasn't the special chocolate. It wasn't the, new like bar that someone was grabbing for, or a new type of potato chip or cracker. But those are the items that made people feel good. And so it was layering that on top of the essentials. It was like, okay, let's do our best to do our part of like adding surprise and delight and something good to someone's home, because that was what you could talk about it, whether by yourself, with a Zoom call, with family at home, because you weren't seeing anyone, but you could have that same experience of food, because food is where you feel emotion. Food is happiness, sadness, celebratory, new baby, new life, new everything. That's food.
I love that. I think that I like the word essential. It's been everywhere. We hear it, we feel it, we taste it. It has become part of the fabric of our lives being in this industry, right? And as you have kind of built upon these boxes, and essentials have become, I'm sure that's in every box. What are you finding are those comfort foods? Is it the chocolate, or is it more salty? Are we going healthy? Like, where are people's hearts right now, especially like post-holiday, looking to like, maybe we've got New Year's resolutions, maybe we don't. What are you finding is really popular right now?
Well, we can say everything in our store is better for you, because it's like that through line of, better ingredients per se. But also at the same time, we have our snack boxes right now just shifted a little bit. And we have emerging or rising stars. So that's like all the newest products that are hitting our shelves. So people want to just dabble and try things. It's like experiential, it's discovery. So people are loving that. There's like a brand that we just started carrying called French Squirrel. And it's this like sunflower butter, like enrobed in chocolate with like no refined sugar. So it's like a take on like a peanut butter cup, but it's really good for you and nutritious and has protein and fiber.
Can we get one of those boxes sent here? We need to start distributing those widely. That sounds great.
Please send me your address.
Indeed.
And then, so that's been doing well. And then there's like Zaza pita chips that are pita chips with za'atar on them, spice. And so people are just like wanting to experience, and like we also carry a lot of new products that are ingredients that come from other cultures. There's black gram, which is like a root vegetable from India. There is, a lot of products are now coming from cactus. And so people love, Tia Lupita, like chips that are a take on a Dorito, or Nemi that are cactus chips or strips. And then we also have our founded snack box, which are female and BIPOC founded makers, because we also want to elevate brands that we love the founders. And like the founders are doing it for a reason, that they wanted to either add their culture, they wanted to add more income coming to their communities, or there was a need that they were filling by creating the products. More than it was a category that was ripe for disruption. And so we want to elevate those founders too. And a lot of people want to support, like founders that are coming from like, it's like the belly type of business. You're like, oh, I'm building it because like I want to build it to do good. And we also want to help those brands grow.
I love that. No, sorry, go ahead, Chris.
Oh, I was just going to say, there were some brands that I saw at the NACS show this past year, which for those who are listening, you aren't familiar, the NACS show is literally Disneyland for the convenience store industry, with a massive expo. And there's a new exhibitor area. And I did see some brands that I saw in your stores first. So, you've been able to find these like really awesome hidden gems that are coming up, and, to have the support of you as a retailer. I mean, that's where it's at, right? You want to get your brand in front of people. And I think, there's probably somewhere I could say, we saw it here first at the Goods Mart.
Well, I am curious, Rachel, do they come to you? Do you find these people is it organic, or do you go to trade shows like the NACS show to find new products? How do you discover these hidden gems?
All of the above.
Yeah.
That's the fun part. Yes, at NACS, and it is Disneyland, and I can't wait for the next one. But also it's going online. It's looking at things. It's Google and spending way too many hours up at night. It's traveling. It's going to local coffee shops. It's really doing the research, because people come to us, but it's also, again, it goes back to, you have to do the work too if you want to have the level of curation that we want to have. And it's not just, for us, it's, not just looking at one distributor and being like, these are the products that we want. It's more of, these are the products we want. How do we get them in our store? Which my operations team are probably not always the happiest with me, but we make it work. And it's also just really incredible to, have the products on our shelves as one of the first retailers. And that's what we're looking to do, is just ask the question of, how can we actually be a true partner with the brands that fill our store versus just a retailer that sells their brand, and how do we help uplift that so that you have more of the emerging brands as namestay products that are everywhere as we continue to grow, because you want to support them.
So speaking of growing, you've grown a little bit the past holiday season. I think all of a sudden I saw your social feed and it was like, wham, got a new store.
Yeah.
What happened there?
Happened fast. Things just happen fast, and you got to put your arms up for the ride. We opened up at 30 Rockefeller Center during their Super Bowl time. I always tell them, where it was just okay, we opened up on technically November 30th, and December 2nd, the tree went up. And you're like, oh my gosh, you didn't realize how busy the city was until you're in Rockefeller Center, and just the sheer volume of people. And it's been fun and exciting, and it's a different type of customer that we have now, because it is a mix of people working above. The building's not full yet, but that I have full belief that by March, April, fingers crossed, that things are going to just be zooming, because above us is NBC Studios. You have, a lot of different larger companies, but you also have tourists, and you have, I think, over 2,000 or 3,000 retail workers from the J. Crew and the Anthropology to the Madewells of the world around us, but then the tourists, and being able to put the products that we have in our store in front of everyone else coming to New York for this moment. And this is another moment that they're taking away. It's so fun. Plus it's an iconic building. It's just you look up and you're like, New York, you're pretty. You built this. And then learning about that land, that was one of the first botanical gardens, I think either in New York or in the US. And that's just it's bringing life back of the type of products that you're carrying. It's going back into the botanical gardens that's what it was before the Rockefellers came and took over, and purchased that big chunk of beautiful real estate.
Mm-hmm. That's a really cool story. And I'm kind of wondering, what does that feel like? Is it, wow, we've made it? Or is it you're so full of passion and heart? Are you a little scared? Maybe what have I done? Is it just, every emotion under the sun? Or is it really yes, absolutely. We've done this. I'm just kind of curious what that feels like, just standing in that store at 30 Rock during Christmas, being I've got this, carousel, this roundabout of people coming through my store, buying all my stuff. How does that feel?
Emotional. I cry. I don't know if it was stress or if it was happiness or all of it lumped up. It was a great feeling, but it's also a feeling of being able to look at it, to be able to I look at things of it's not fully there yet until we have everyone in the building in. And so it's finally fine tuning everything so that you understand that flow really well. Because there's also a lot of challenges when you have the tree up with security and blockades and everything else. But it's also beautiful and amazing. It was just the moment that more got my emotion and my heartstrings pulled was when they took like the old like convenience store newsstand, because we took over a newsstand space. They took off the old kind of just like markings, because they literally had to like etch it off because it was there for so long, but it closed during the pandemic, and it was closed for 2 years. And then they put our branding up on this like iconic like TV screen where they're showing the news, but it's like our brand, but it's in kind of like the Rockefeller type font. And it was like that moment of like, oh gosh, our name's on the wall. Oh my gosh, this is real. Like, oh,
this is happening.
You know, I better put on a smock and go to work.
I gotta go to work.
Yeah.
But then it was like that challenge too, you know, so it was like hard. Like, I think I still have to like sit back and be like, we opened it because it's been like a rat race since, because it's been go, go, go. Because as everyone in the industry, like it's hard with like labor right now. And it was really hard to find like team members during the holidays to work. And especially during like that area within, you know, 30 Rock of just like the busyness of that. But on top of that, you had like the spike of Omicron. It was just like all of that hitting like boom, boom, boom. So then, you know, you find yourselves as an operator, you just like roll your sleeves up and you're like, okay, I'm there. So you're there from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and you're just like trying to get that energy going, and all that stuff. So it's fun, but I think we have to like still take a step back and be like, oh, we did it. But maybe that's going to come in March.
Yeah. Didn't we say that 2 years ago?
Yes.
2-year anniversary. Here we come, y'all.
Still in it.
Yeah.
I think one of the things, and I called you this before in a previous podcast, I called you an idea factory, and I stand by that because I do believe that you are just constantly, you're full of ideas and finding them and learning. And I think, you know, over the years, you've gotten a chance to get to know some of the other retailers in this industry. Like, you know, we have Lonnie McWhirter and Don Rhodes and whoever else you got the pleasure of hanging out with at the NACS show when you spoke on stage with those two gentlemen. But what I'm just curious, like looking around, like what ideas are you seeing that you want to incorporate in your stores?
I mean, it's right now we're trying to, it's like constantly incorporating, like, how do you incorporate more technology, but also at the same time keep people first? Because I'm a believer in people in your store, because like, especially for us, because we have such a high touch point of like discovery, and our spots are so small that you want to have someone talking about it, because you want to talk about taste, you want to talk about like how it makes you feel. And like, you can't sometimes always get that on a screen or through text. So it's continuously looking at the innovations of technology within a store, like not only like from the front side, but like what's the back side. And then also we've just like really having great conversations with Lonnie and Don and like everyone else, in the sense of, you know, I'm very happy that I was just like on the legislative committee, and like that was like our first meeting was this week. And it was incredible just to listen to what's happening, not within everyone's own bubble of, you know, what's happening within, you know, just like labor, and then talking more about like the SNAP program and like, you know, hopefully getting hot food onto that. And so those are exciting, because it's just like, how can we all use our voice to do more in improving the system and improving the entire convenience store community? And that just feels like a great honor. And I'm more excited to continue to learn and soak in what's been happening, because there's been so much good happening. And then how do we deploy that more within New York? Or, you know, how can I use my skill set, you know, from the communication side that I've had to help amplify more? So I feel like, I don't know, I'm excited about everything, and I feel like I'm meeting more people, and I just got to dive in more and more and more. And I feel like, I feel like there's just more to happen. I think that's also a curse and a blessing. It's more, more, more.
Yeah. It's an exciting industry, and it's so exciting. Very fast paced. Everyone's innovating and learning. And, you know, you were on stage with Mike Fogerty of Choice Markets. So I imagine, at the National Retail Federation show in New York City. So I imagine you heard from him how you know, tech enabled his stores are becoming, and how he's really, you know, he's an innovator for sure in that space.
He really is, and it's like it was such a great panel, and just seeing there's so much history within the convenience store world, and there's so much innovation that continues, but the history that goes back into it, and like the impact that the convenience store world has on people. I think that a greater overall, not those within the convenience store world, like having a business or knows in and around it, knows the impact that convenience store and C stores actually have on the overall community of people we have that fill like our like country and basically our globe and our Mother Earth, because of the fact that the number of stores, the volume, like the turns of people coming in, and just like the introductory, because most people, when you talk to them, they're like, oh, can you think about the convenience store? Think about the corner store. Think about the mart or the bodega. There's always a moment that I was like, I had this one store in my community growing up and it made this impact, or I have this guy that I see every day, or I have this woman that I walk in every day, or we meet here and we have coffee, or they have like this bagel sandwich that I love. It's the fabric of like our country. And I think that that's just so beautiful. And like, it's crazy. And it's just crazy to be part of it sometimes too.
It's really fun to watch you light up when you talk about this. Passion is so evidently part of your mission. And it's really cool to be on the receiving end of that. I've just got like chills, Love feeling that from you, Rachel.
I love it from you guys too.
We're kind of passionate about the industry too, I'd have to say.
Yeah,
I know.
Absolutely. I wanted to just touch on one thing, because this is something that as people get to know you in this industry and we talk more, you have your own consulting firm, and you kind of touched on it a little bit. You said your communications background, I think as a smaller operator, that piece is the PR piece, and the marketing piece is something that smaller operators tend to maybe struggle with a little bit, in terms of thinking that they have to have massive budgets and teams of like 10 running everything like the big guys do, but they don't always have to do that. I think there's a lot of stuff that they can do on their own with like a smaller, more nimble team. Do you have any, words of wisdom for anyone who's listening, knowing that you've been in that space for quite some time?
Yeah, it's been 20 years. Crazy that I've had my own PR agency. It's just like, it's knowing your community. Most areas that you have from an impact perspective, say you're in just like your town in New York. I just want to hit the local market initially because of the fact. So you have your New York Post, you have your daily news, you have like the local like newspapers. There's someone that either writes business or food. Find those writers. You can easily find their email, or you can find them on Twitter. You can find them on LinkedIn, and just send a note to them. Send a note, talk about what your business is, what you're trying to do. And you can start small. It's making an impact with a writer one by one, inviting them to come in, talk and share them about your story. It's about connections through everything. It's the connections similar that you have with your customers, similar that you have with your vendors, with your distributors. Press is also the same. It's once they're part of your community, then they can help amplify your voice in that way. And you don't need a big team. And you can do things in a way that is scrappy and more grassroots. And like the people that you make an impact with initially, they're going to be with you throughout your entire journey. So it's just saying hi and like shooting them a note and being like, hey, I've never done this before, but here's more about my business. Would love to invite you to come by, and I would love to tell you more. Sometimes it takes as easy as that. And it's like, if it's an impactful message to them and how you're impacting your community, talk about an event that you're doing, talk about a community initiative that you're doing. They're probably going to want to write about it, And so that is, I think, the biggest impact is don't think that you need to have a big team or agency to make a mark for yourself within your own community, because you don't, because it's talking about the folks that are hitting it on the ground that you also want to be your customers at the end of the day, because they're going to want to write about you because they want to celebrate you.
Right. And nobody can tell your story better than you. Right. So there's tell it. I think Britt might have something fun.
I do.
To try out.
All right, Rachel. It's time to play NACS Trivia. That music is just cracking me up. I can't get enough of it. Okay, Rachel, before we let you go, we have just a very quick question. Are you ready?
I'm scared.
Come on down, Rachel. Don't be scared. Don't be scared. Here we go. NACS president and CEO Henry Armour interviewed which rapper at the NACS show? A, 50 Cent, actually, pardon me. B, Lil Jon. C, Snoop Dogg. Or D, Flo Rida?
Shoot. I would say Flo Rida. But I'm probably wrong.
Good guess. Good
Close.
guess.
Snoop Dogg, no, was it Snoop?
No, I'm sorry, no. Okay, do you want to try one more time?
No, because I'm just going to go through all of them.
All right, the process of
Here we
elimination
go.
here.
Henry Armour interviewed Curtis Jackson or 50 Cent at the 2011 NACS show. However, all 4 performers have appeared at the NACS show. Aren't we lucky?
Mm-hmm.
I think Henry was the lucky one here.
By the way, I was thinking this past year. You didn't give me the date.
Oh, I'm so sorry. You know what? We're still working this whole NACS trivia thing out. That's a really good point, Rachel. How about this? We're going to give it to you anyway. You win. You win this one.
Yay!
Yay! Thanks for playing.
I don't know what you win, but you won.
All of them. I want to interview all of them.
I know.
How fun
Wouldn't
would
that be fun to sit on stage with those gentlemen? I would have a blast.
It was even better watching our CEO do it.
We've got pictures, yeah.
That's like what That's
Henry and
the fun
Fitty
part of
just
this.
having it out, right?
I have pictures somewhere.
Please share those with me.
We will. Rachel, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and we know we're going to be speaking again. So we look forward to seeing what you're doing in the future.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's always the highlight of my day. So anytime you need anything, please let me know.
We will, Rachel. Thank you so much.
And to everyone who is everyone who is listening, thanks for listening, obviously. And you can find us at convenience-matters.com. And you can also subscribe and download our podcast wherever you enjoy listening to podcasts. So thank you all.
Convenience Matters is brought to you by NACS and produced in partnership with Human Factor. For more information, visit convenience.org.